This lesson is going to provide a quick overview of Visual Studio Code. So this is the suggested editor to write code. It's an open source editor. It's free and it runs across Mac, Windows, and Linux machines. So first off, go over to the website code.visualstudio.com and go to the main page where you have a download option. You can select the download option that's going to suit your system. So right now I am on a Mac, so I would be downloading the stable Mac version and doing the install on my computer. So run through the install of the application, and they do have really good documentation on their website. So let's go ahead and open the download file. Now you should see a welcome screen whenever you first start up the application, and the font is going to be rather small, so I'm actually going to increase the font size. So I'm on a Mac, I'm using just Command plus, and that's going to increase the size of the font. So you don't necessarily need to increase it on your system. I'm doing it because I'm recording the video, so it's a lot easier to read. So this welcome screen, you can uncheck it. Otherwise, it will always show up whenever you open the application. And you can also trigger the welcome screen. So if you do happen to close it and you want to get back to that welcome screen, you can go under the top tabs under Help, Welcome, and that's going to pop that screen back up. So they do have some basic starting commands here where you can start by creating a new file. You can open a file, or you can run a command in the command palette and view all of the commands that are available within the Visual Studio Code. There's also recent content. So once you've been working on some content, you're going to see it listed within the recents. There's also release notes and how to get started with Visual Studio Code. So what this will do is this is going to give you some basics to get started. So let's go through those, where you can select the theme that you want to use. There's 3 default themes. There's the light, there's the dark, there's the high contrast, and there's an option to load even more themes. So you can select see more themes, and this gives you the full listing of all the themes that are currently installed on the system. So you might have more. It depends on what the default is. You can also install additional color themes. So selecting the install additional color themes will give you a full listing on the left-hand side of all of the different themes that are available in the marketplace. So let's say you do want to install one of these themes, you like it, you want to do the install. I'm going to do the one Candy Dark, just do a quick install of it. It does have some information about how many downloads, how many likes, how many stars it's received. So go ahead and click the install, and that will install that particular theme. So you can set the theme color as well. You can disable, you could uninstall it at any time. If you want to minimize the themes window, you can always go that way and minimize the themes window. So now it's changed the theme. You can always go and open up the options once again. So for the command palette, that's under View Command Palette. There's also a shortcut for that, and that's one of the best ways to access the Visual Studio options and what you can do with Visual Studio fairly quickly. A shortcut for the Mac is Command-Shift-P, and for a Windows machine it's Shift-Control-P. So that's going to open up the command palette, and this is the command palette where we've got all of the commands that are available. So what you can do is you can select by theme. So you can generate color theme from current settings. You can select a color theme. So going back to the select color theme, this will once again give you the option to switch back to the other themes that were available. And again, if you want to load more themes, you once again have an option to load even more themes. So I'm going to go back to that high contrast. And whenever you're done with one of the themes or the extensions or one of the windows, there's the tabs at the top that you can use to close them down. So the next option that we want it to look at is when we go here, we can select the different languages. And this is one of the most important parts because this allows you to write the code smarter, allows you to Visual Studio to understand the syntax and helps do the code completion, debugging. So you can select the various language extensions. So these are some of the common language extensions that you might want to use. If you select browse the language extensions, it'll give you all of the different language extensions. So depending on what programming languages that you're using, you can install the various extensions. And this is going to look very similar to how you did the install for the color theme, that you've got the windows that are popping up that are showing you information about the add-on that you're adding on, some brief on how to use it, and also you have an option to uninstall it if you want as well. So closing that, and now going back to the shortcuts. So shortcuts as well, if you're coding, it does save you some time. So if you get familiar with the shortcuts of your editor, or if you do have an editor that you are familiar with its shortcuts and you want to use the same shortcuts within Visual Studio Code, you're able to do that as well. So you can open that up again within the command palettes, and it's got all of the shortcuts. So one of the ones we just saw is we can open up the command palette with a shortcut. There's also, if you want to get the keyboard shortcuts reference, that's all available there too. So you click it, it'll bring you out to the web page, which will give you the option to download the PDF with all of the shortcuts that are available for your system. So it detected that I'm on a Mac, and it brought me into the shortcut list for this computer. We can open up our code, and we can see the code. So this is an option that we can use when we're exploring. So we can start and check out a project. Getting started, you can also walk through this, click these links, you can go to the command palette as well. And this gives you more information about what's available. One of the nice other features that is available within the Visual Studio Code is the built-in terminal. So this is a convenient way to run and get shell access. So you can show the terminal palette, which is the terminal down here below. You also have an option in the top menu to create a new terminal. You can split a terminal, and there's some configuration and ability to run some tasks. So what this will do is this will open up the terminal to wherever your folders are. So by default right now it's just going to open up to the root of my system because I don't have any folders set up, or I don't have any files set up. But if we do have files that we open up the terminal, then that's going to open up within that directory. So let's go back. We can close the terminal. So you can minimize the terminal as well. You can create a new terminal. You can set the different names, icons, and colors for the terminal, so that if you want to be able to distinguish particular terminal and one from the other, you're able to do that. There's also a debug console, an output, and a problems area. So if there's any problems within the source code, it'll be outlined here. So one of the other really nice things about the Visual Studio Code is there's a lot of different extensions that you can make use of. So in order to select the extensions, you can go from the getting started, the browse the recommended extensions. So this gives you some default extensions, and in order to install them, you just simply click the install button. There's also ESLint. So these are very useful application and extensions that you can use within your coding for even more. So once you've gone through and you've set up your Visual Studio Code, so what you can do now is you can start creating some files. There's also some more options within the Get Started, so you can tweak your different settings. And this is all available within the settings window, where you can set your autosave, you can set the font size, and a number of other visual settings that you can use in order to really customize the way that your editor is behaving. So let's close the Get Started, and what we'll do is we're going to create a brand new file. There's a number of different ways to create a file. You can select and you can just do the shortcut keys, or you can go over to the top menu bar, select under File, and you've got an option for a new file. You also have several other options where you can open up a new window, you can open an existing file, you can open existing workspace, you can see your recent files, you can add to the current workspace folder, so you're adding this existing folder, or you can save as a workspace. So you can also use workspaces in order to separate out the different files and the different projects that you're working on in order to create separation, so that once you have all of the content contained within the single workspace, it's a lot easier to manage. So you've also got the typical save options. You've got the autosave that you can turn on and off here. You can revert, you can close the editor and close the window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new file. So what gets created is just a blank file. So there's no extension on this. There's no language. The language down at the bottom in the bar at the bottom is just going to say that it's plain text. So it's not detecting that this is any particular type of file. So we're going to create a simple HTML file. And so you have an option to type in the code, and notice that it's not opening, it's not doing an auto, it's not making any suggestion for any of the syntax. And you will see once you actually save it as a file type, then it will pick up the different coding and it'll also help you with the code styling. So you're going to see the different colors of that styling. So one of the best things to do is, before you even start working on a file, is to save it to the file extension that you want to be using. You can use the keyboard shortcuts, or you can go up to File and do the Save As and save the file. So I've got a folder called Coder, and this is where I'm going to create the file. So just creating that index HTML file. And once it detects that this is an HTML file, it'll give me the path to where the file is located, also tell me the different file type, and also down here below we're going to see the file type. So what's happening now is that we've got the suggester now. So when I start typing some of the code, and it's got auto closing of the brackets, and you can customize all of this within the settings. It's also got the full tree, where we've got the DOM tree of the HTML, the head, and the title. So what is nested within other? So what are the children that are nested within the parents? And it's got the whole tree structure and the whole hierarchy being presented there. And now that it did detect that it's an HTML file, it's making it a little bit easier to run. So there are some really good extensions that we can make use of, and we can also customize the windows. So there's a minified screen of the text here. There's the breadcrumbs up here. There's a few bars at the left and at the bottom. So you can customize this. If you go to View, you can get rid of the mini map, which is the first one that we should have showed you in the top right hand corner. You can also get rid of the breadcrumbs. So that's that breadcrumb of hierarchies. And also when you're in the HTML, the hierarchy for that. There's also under Appearance, you can show the sidebar, which is the sidebar where we were just selecting the extensions, and also the themes. Again, under Appearance, you can hide that sidebar. You can show the status bar, and the status bar is the one that was right there at the bottom, and you can hide that status bar. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the status bar. And depending on how much space you need for your screen, you can also hide the activity bar. So let's go ahead and create one more file. So save this file, and I just did the shortcut to create a brand new file. I'm going to save this file as test.js, and within test.js we'll output hello world. Now I already do have Node installed on my system, so this was just to demonstrate how to use the terminal within Visual Studio Code. So you can go up to the terminal option and select New Terminal. That's going to open up the terminal window. So let's go back under View, and I'm going to add the breadcrumbs back in. So this is going to be the folder that we're sitting in. So let's navigate into the coder folder. So typing in coder, and now if I list out, I can see the two files that I have. So I have test.js and index.html. So I do have Node installed, and in order to run a JavaScript file, I can type in node test.js within the terminal, and that's going to execute the code that's available within the test.js file. And that's directly within the editor. So notice I didn't have to leave. So notice that I didn't have to leave to another application, as a terminal is really conveniently here directly within the editor. There's also the output area. There's the debug, which helps you debug some of the application processes. There's also problems. So it's detecting any problems with the code. It'll let you know. So if we do have some issues with the code, it'll tell me within test.js. It's an unterminated string literal. So that means that I didn't end the string. So it detected the problem right away. And we can save it. You can also do for the debugging. So let's say we had several different hello worlds that we were running that we're outputting into the console. And you can set these debug breakpoints. So these are the red dots here to the left of the code statement. So let's go back to the terminal, and I'll just clear that, and we'll run the node test.js. So it runs through all of the different syntax there. If we go through the debug console And if we go to the top menu where we go run start debugging, so selecting the environment, and I'm going to use Node.js to do the debugging. So we see that it stops at the first breakpoint, and it gives us information about the application. So the variables that are being used within the application, the file path to the application, so the directory. So it's got all of the node content that's being output within the debug console. We've got the debug, we've got the first line of code, we're paused on the breakpoint, so where the stack is currently at. So we can continue to the next breakpoint, and then continue again to the last breakpoint. We also have an option to run and debug. We can debug the JavaScript terminal, we can debug the URL, so we've got all the different breakpoints that are set. So this is some of the debugging that you can do within the Visual Studio Code. Let's also go back to index, and in order to run the index file, so you can simply drag and drop it within the browser, so that will open up the file to whatever that file location is. You also have an option to install extensions, such as a live server, so that will give you the ability to run this file within a local host, and that local machine that gets set up directly from the Visual Studio Code from the web editor. So let's go ahead and we're going to add in the extension. So under code in the top menu, and then to preferences, and then extensions, where you could use the shortcut to open up the extensions window. We've got a number of different extensions here, so right now it's just searching for the recommended ones. The one that we are going to be looking for is called live server, and this gives you the option to install a live server. So I already have it installed, so I'm going to uninstall it. I'm going to reload the application, go back to live server, and then just do an install of the live server. So now that live server is set up and it's running, and there's some more information about the different extensions that are available. It's within the window. And once you're done with the window, you can always close it. I also still have the terminal open. So let's go ahead and we're going to close the live server. So now we can run the live server. So let's minimize the sidebar, and we can run the live server. So we need to have a HTML file, and we actually need to have a folder, so we can run the live server off of the folder. So if we do click the coder, that's the folder that we want as the root of our live server. And what you need to do is actually you need to open up the folder in order to run it within, get the live server option for all of the files that are contained within there, or you can add it into a workspace. So under file, you can select to open, and open the folder or open the workspace. So right now what I'll do is I'll open up the folder. So go into the folder on my system, just clicking open. So that's going to open it up. It's going to give us this option that we trust the authors of this file, and I'm just going to say yes, that we do trust. You see the two files that we're working on, so the index and the JavaScript file. So they're both there on the left-hand side within the file listing. And now within index, whenever we go to index, whenever we're starting out with the folder explorer, now we got the option to go live here at the bottom right-hand side within the bar. So we can click that, and that will open up the file within the local machine, within the live local machine. So you do have an option to configure this within the live server add-on. You can close it, you can not show the message. Also anywhere on the HTML file, because now it's attached to the folder, so it knows what the root folder is for the live server. You can right click on a Windows machine. I'm just going to close this window, this message, or you could do a control click on a Mac, and you've got another option there to open the live server, and you can stop the live server as well. So that gives you those options in order to have the live server up and running, and this is a great way to edit your files and your applications. And if you ever do close your live server browser window, you can simply go to the local host, and using the port with the colon between them, so localhost with the port 5500, or you can use the 127.0.0.1, and it's going to refer you to the same location, which is going to be where the live server is running the files from that folder. And so this is a great way to develop, because now whenever you make any changes within the HTML file, it's automatically going to get shown within the display area of the browser. So that's whenever you've got the file open and you update the content within the editor. And right now I just have a split screen where I've got the editor on the left-hand side, the browser minified on the right-hand side. So there's a lot of features, and we've just really just touched the surface of all of the features that are available within Visual Studio Code. So now it's up to you. You can go over to the website if you want to know more. There's a whole bunch of documentation. There's the getting started. There's a set of videos, settings, user information, user guide, setting up for the different languages, and there's lots of rich documentation. There's also a lot of, so this is a well-supported application.